What's something horrible you've witnessed as a child but did not completely understand, only to discover later in life how horrible it really was? My grandfather raped my mother in front of me while my grandmother held me back. I was 4. It's my second earliest memory. I didn't understand what was happening. I just remember screaming for my mom and the sounds. His grunting and her screaming pleads for him to stop. Afterward my mother drove me to my great-grandmother's house. She told my great-grandma exactly what happened in front of me and left me there as long as she could. When I was 10 my great-grandmother got sick and died. I went back to my mom's. My mother denies it ever happened, but she also abused me in ways that rivaled what her father did to her. Exclusively me, not my siblings. This has haunted me for a long time. Kind of a reverse situation that happened to my teacher. When she was a kid she ran over a kid's foot with a bike. It triggered a seizure. I believe he was epileptic, and after that he passed out. She thought she killed him and instead of getting help she hid the body in a closet. After their recess was over they were looking for him and she just stared bawling crying saying she killed him. Kid was completely fine wondering why he woke up in closet. When I was in grade 1 a girl next to me in class decided to secretly show me her bum in the middle of class and tell me to touch it. I told the teacher because it was weird and girls were gross. Teacher pulled her out the class to talk to her. Principal came. Upset adults. I sit there mortified I got her in trouble. She gets pulled out of the class and never comes back. Think I'm the biggest jerk for tattling. Later find out she was being sexually abused, hence why she thought secretly showing her body was what she should do for boys she liked, and my saying something is what triggered adults pull her out of that situation. I grew up in an evangelical unaffiliated church. They believed in speaking in tongues, demon possession, and exorcisms. A local boy that I befriended, maybe 12 to 14 in age at the time, lived in the apartments near our church. He was poor and rough, he cussed and smoked and was generally on his own, but on Sunday and Wednesday nights he started coming over to the church. One night for some reason someone decided that they needed to put hands on him and pray for his soul. He didn't like that so he jumped back and yelled profanities at them. That apparently was clear evidence that he was possessed, so several adults wrestled him out of the pew and held him down while he screamed and flailed and cussed at them for the next couple of hours until he was exhausted and bruised enough and they were satisfied the demon left. The 100 or so onlookers just all started praying and crying and dancing around it. That was just a pretty normal church night, maybe a little more spirited than usual. He didn't return and in retrospect it's amazing that the police never even showed up. Similar things happened multiple times throughout my childhood. It wasn't until I was an adult and I looked back to see how completely fucked up that all was. How terrifying that must have been for him. When I was growing up my mom ran a daycare out of our home. Naturally my siblings and I became friends with some of the kids, especially the ones closer to our ages. When I was about 10 a girl who was about 9 and her brother who was about 3 used to come over often and stay the night because their mom worked the graveyard shift. My sister and I became great friends with the girl because we got to regularly have sleepovers. The girl was younger than me but acted so much older. She had lots of stories she'd tell us while we were going to bed. A lot of them revolved around parties with her mom's friends. I learned what a shot of liquor was because of her. She had tasted one by accident. Then she told me stories of kissing people, sometimes teenage boys. Then the story about her aunt wearing only underwear and insisting on sharing a bed with her. Then she told me a story about how one of her mom's boyfriends showed her his penis when she was about 6 and tried to get her to touch it. She said no, told her mom, and her mom got pissed. But she never sounded concerned or scared. She told these stories like she was dishing dirt or showing off how adult she was. My sister and I listened with curiosity. And while I knew about sex, I hadn't made the connection until many years later that this girl had been abused repeatedly and that was causing her to act this way. I never told my mom either. A couple years later we moved to another state and mom got another job. We never saw that family again. Now I feel guilty about the whole thing and wonder if that girl and her brother are doing okay. Being woken up by your mom screaming for help, dad rushing in and grabbing my youngest brother at the time and giving CPR trying his hardest to revive him. I was maybe 5 or 6 at the time, I didn't know what to do, no one was explaining to me what was happening, it was only when the ambulance came that I was sent to a neighbor's. My brother was born with a lung problem, it's been 18 years now, can't remember ATM. And he was hooked up to a machine that helped him breathe at night. Well, PG&E failed to let us know that they were going to do maintenance on a transformer outside and cut the power, and because of that he suffocated overnight. I didn't know what was happening at the time, and it did not really come up until one night I was in the car with my parents. Then the song Dreaming of You by Selena came up, At that moment I just cried so much. I remember asking my parents why did they have to take him, and how much I missed him. To this day I still cannot hear that song, R.I.P. Baby David, someday I'll see you again.